You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith. Thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in and talk some Noles football with me. Today's show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This live show is going to be a little bit different than some others that I might have done because it's going to be more categorized, not quite as broad, I hope. But then again, there's going to be a lot of questions, and I understand that. Happy to address each and one across all the platforms that are coming in because I know there are more than Florida State fans coming in here to check this out. I did a podcast earlier today regarding Florida State's loss to Memphis 20-12. What's the long-term projection for Mike Norvell? I have my doubts. That's definitely in limbo. I don't think Florida State can do anything to make this quick turnaround. This is a long-term deal, so there's a lot of discussion. You might as well have it. This is going to be a long season, a very dreadful one. So with that, I have 3 areas that I want to discuss. First one's the most basic. I want to get it out of the way. I did some research, talking with some people, and I also read up other people in the world of journalism. What do they think about Florida State? So I want to read some quotes from various people that follow the Noles, who go out of their way to write about the Noles, podcast about the Noles, college football, gambling, you name it. And here are the comments that I have. This no particular order, by the way, but these are some of the comments. This one, the very first one, is my favorite of the group because it gives a rounded perspective of Florida State football, but it also just kind of words it uniquely. This is Chris Nee from Noles 24/7. He states, through 3 outings, Florida State's offense is a failure by nearly every metric. Inoperable at times, and the anchor that is setting FSU up for a season of epically bad proportion. In other words, Florida State's offense is just dragging it down. Chris brings up a good point because obviously the defense improved quite a bit yesterday, especially the second half. I thought they played pretty well in terms of just making things happen when they had to keep Memphis from scoring. Made some nice adjustments, but they still have problems too. The secondary doesn't do a good job with switches and whatnot, and linebacker safety play, etc. But that's an interesting statement from Chris. Very well done. Listen to part of the War Chant pod, and this is a couple of comments that were there that I like the point-blank nature of it. The offense wrestled it away and said, it's our fault. In other words, there were problems with the team across the board in the Georgia Tech game. Got a little better in BC in some ways, but then, quite honestly, minus the goofiness with the punt return where one guy runs into another, that's just salt into the wound. But the offense was the only complete debacle among the 3 categories of offense, defense, and special teams when the Noles played Tigers. So it's a really interesting point. I think that, again, the comment, the offense wrestled it away and said it's our fault, talking about why the Noles lost to Memphis. It's really well worded. And just a basic statement that is true is also from that War Chant podcast. The offense is a wreck. No doubting that one. Bud Elliott from the Nolecast and 24/7. I don't know really where to start. Here's a little note. I listen to the Nolecast quite a bit. I know Bud, he's a friend of mine, and they do a great job on that show. Talk about Florida State. And it's ironic he said that because Bud's a lawyer and is a very honest and intelligent man. Florida State's he's a Florida State grad. He's a guy that has followed Florida State his whole life, the whole 9 yards. Yet at the same time, he had this glossed over look on his face, kind of like he'd seen a ghost. When Bud says that, it's not a good sign. He also brings up the following in regards to the Florida State offense. Again, this is Bud Elliott, 24/7 at CBS. 238 yards against Memphis. That's just not going to get it done. That's an embarrassing effort right there. Well said, Bud. You could not be more correct. Now, I know there are a lot of people, they're going to be in the chat discussing some of those, but I want to add a couple of my own comments as well. Looking at this holistically, diving into Mike Norvell earlier today. Check out the podcast that I did this morning and put up, I believe, around noonish. It went up talking about his contract, how long he has, what he needs to do. A few things that are in that I just want to also drop into here. Number one, it is undeniable that at minimum, I have my own thoughts on which ones they need to be, but it's going to let it be. For namesake, I'm not going to name drop who I think needs to be fired. But there are a couple of coaches that need to be fired from Florida State staff. And I also think it's both sides of the football, and I also think 2 is a minimum number. That being stated, going by history, knowing a lot of coaches, high school and college level, there is one thing they typically have in common, regardless of their success or failures. They are stubborn as billy goats. They hate change beyond, like they don't want to even hear the word change around them. They don't want to hear it. It's like a 4-letter word to them. Well, if Norvell goes that route, like many coaches before him, I will tell you right now, my prediction is the following. If Norvell literally makes 0 changes to the assistant coaching staff, 0. Let's say they go out and get a good portal quarterback or one of the young guys. I don't care how it is. Even if the quarterback play improves next year, he'll still be in trouble. They're not going to maximize their talent with the current coaching staff. Keyword, maximize. It's one thing to have a team that can go 8-4. Florida State's not ponying up all those renovations inside of Doak Campbell Stadium for 8-4. They're trying to get to the playoff. They're not suing the Atlantic Coast Conference and the people associated with them in regards to the grant of rights to go 8-4. You've already established if everything lines up, you can win every game you play on your schedule. The boosters are ponying up for all this NIL, the collectives. It's not going to work. There need to be players being coached by different coaches next spring. In the offseason, the whole 9 yards, everything needs to be evaluated from top to bottom. I don't think anybody's going to argue with that, but I did want to state it for the record. Final point. I think that right now, that as much as I don't like losing the team, I understand there's been calls for it for a while, but they're going to have to start playing some of the younger guys and changing practice in some capacities that I wasn't even thinking about, say, a week ago. I mean, especially on offense, like, goodness gracious, you need to do it. Like, they already started playing Cam Davis, which I'm all for. Cam's a guy I love. He's so talented and a good young man, by all means. Probably need to be a few more. To that point, by the way, and I don't know the extent of these, having both of your offensive tackles out against Memphis obviously was terrible. But Darius Washington, you know, you can't lose guys like that and it go well. Byers was out. We didn't know if he was going to play, but had my doubts. They need guys back. So it's not that you have a newbie coming up the ranks at every spot that's quote unquote ready. So just because guys do get inserted into the lineup moving forward, and there probably will be quite a few, doesn't mean they're going to be good right away. Just remember that. This season, barring something unforeseen, is a disaster. No way around that. It is a disaster. And I don't think if anybody could qualify at something less than that, why? Like, how could you? It's not very easy for me to understand if you could. So do what you want with it. But to put it in perspective here, this is a post that I put on X. I'm going to share my screen before break here. This is kind of a sad state of affairs, but this is just something that I asked. And again, I'll share it momentarily. I'm going to read it first. Florida State's 3-0 or 0-3. How many games did the Noles win considering the following schedule? Pick an option or comment below. All right, here's the schedule. They've got Cal this weekend. They go to SMU. Then they host Clemson. So that's the next 3 consecutive weeks. Then they get a bye. They go to Duke, at Miami, home to North Carolina, go to Notre Dame, have Charleston Southern, and then play the Florida Gators to close out the 24 season. The 4 options that I gave are 2 or 3 wins for 1, 4 or 5 wins for 2, 6 or 7 wins for 3, and then 1 win was the 4th option. Right now, it's a very tight race on this. 2 or 3 wins is ahead at 43%. 4 or 5 wins is at 41.3. Sadly, 1 win is ahead of 6 or 7, and it's not close. It's 11.6% compared to 4.1%. That is not good. So I'm going to share the screen here with that, put that up on the screen so you can take a look at it. But again, I don't know what we can really expect out of Florida State right now. But if I voted 2 or 3 wins, about a week or so ago, I said 4 wins was about as high as it get. And that was iffy. Right now, I think the 2 wins that are most likely are the Duke game, because Duke's pretty bad, and then the game against Charleston Southern. Those are the 2. Florida State's schedule is going to get worse in terms of difficulty, not easier. So that's something to think about. If you want to check out this poll, it's my normal Twitter handle, at FBScout_Florida. I don't know how else to put it. I was curious. I didn't know what I'd get out of this, but a lot of people thinking that, over a half think Florida State's going to win between 1 and 3 wins between the 2 of those categories. That's crazy to me. So it is what it is. When we come back, we're going to talk about a couple other things that are similar. Still have 2 really key ingredients to talk about. The next one is a lot of numbers, and they're crazy high for all the wrong reasons. We're going to talk Florida State's offensive statistical rankings. Oh boy, they are brutal. And then after that, we'll get into the chat a little bit, and then we're going to talk buy or sell and some more chat. That's next here on Locked On Seminoles. Have you tried 5-Hour Energy lately? Remember, this is something you can get at your convenience store, your gas station, your grocery store, and a lot of other places. 5-Hour Energy fixes tired fast. Whether you have a long list of things to do or do-it-yourself project that you need to tackle at home, 5-Hour Energy is a shot you can check out and get everything done on your list quickly. If you're like me, you'll always have a large list of projects at home. That's definitely true. When you get your supplies for the project, do not forget the most essential supply, which is a 5-Hour Energy shot. So get in the zone with 5-Hour Energy shots. Give you the feeling of alertness and energy you need to get in the zone. With no sugar, convenient, portable size, it's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. Go to 5hourenergy.com. That is the number 5hourenergy.com, and get some 5-Hour Energy product today. You can use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This order is only valid through September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. All right, let's talk a few stats here. These are straight off the screen. I wrote them down, put them in the order that I wanted for myself. But man, oh man, are these crazy bad. Like, these are all offense, just for the record. And you just can't make this stuff up. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. All right. The first one it's kind of comical to even say this out loud. A few of the titles that I'm going to read probably going to make people laugh, but like, why would you talk about this? I just want the numbers out there for the state in this that I have, like how much I go into it. And it's mind blowing to me. So points per game, 15.3. Florida State, and there are 134 teams in the FBS this year. Again, 134. Florida State is 124th in scoring. Total offensive yards, 274 a game. They're 128th. Wow. That's just incredible to me. Passing plays of 20 yards or more. They have 9 so far this year, which surprises me. It's a little higher than I thought it would be. That's 62nd. Running plays of 20 or more yards, they have 2. That's 93rd. Wow, that's just crazy. Passing touchdowns, they have 1. That is 128th in the nation. When did you ever think Florida State would struggle with passing touchdowns? It's like bottom of the board. Rushing, they have 3 touchdowns on the ground. That is 90th. Third down percentage. They are 10 of 38 this year, 26.3%. That tells you all you need to know right off the bat. Out of 134 teams, your Noles are 126th. I combined this stat, did a little extra research. Only 42% of Florida State's passes have traveled 10 or more yards. It's a combination of a couple of things from Pro Football Focus. They do a good job on some of that stuff. So it is true. It's obviously been talked about to death that Florida State does not throw the ball down the field all that much. So 42%, I mean, with the kind of arm DJ has, you would think it'd be 50%, 10 or more yards away from the line of scrimmage. Apparently not. Here are DJ U's passing numbers. 56 and 99, 56.6%, 666 yards, 1 TD, 2 picks, and the atrocious 6.7 yards per passing attempt. If you're at 8, you're average. They're at 6.7. Oh boy. Third downs. DJ is 14 of 26, 53.8%, 173 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick, only 8 first downs out of 26 passing attempts. That's less than a third. I mean, that's really, really bad. He has been hammered, and this next stat will go into this, with some drops. Keziah Holmes had that screen against Memphis. That was a big drop. That could have been a huge one. Set up well, good timing. He's a very good athlete, but he just dropped it. Maybe they're pressing. I don't know. But overall, the pass receiving grade for Florida State through 3 games is 89th in the nation, and it's 64.6. I mean, Florida State, with its ability to run, the size they have, etc., that should be 75 or higher. To be in the 60s at all is pretty porous. To be at 64.6 is kind of unexplainable, to be really honest with you. So I'm going to jump into the chat here. I don't know what to think about some of those numbers. I'm still blown away. Matter of fact, I want to read 2 more numbers here. Rushing offense. Let's see where Florida State's at. Let's see where Florida State's got to be just like, oh my gosh. They're 133rd in the nation at 52 yards per game. There's only one team below them, and that is Miami of Ohio. Literally the worst team in the FBS. Passing offense, Florida State's not near as bad. They are number 74 at 222 again. Okay. Now I'll get into the chat. Those numbers, though, come on, man. That's embarrassing. That's really embarrassing. So I'm just going to start at the top of the chat here, and we'll go from there. Got a lot of thanks for all the people that I may not get to all of these. There are a ton in here. Jake, with the great one to start. Don't let the depression get to you. Jake, I don't know if I'm depressed yet, but it's pretty bad. Tribal Chief says the same thing. Don't let regression get to you. Let's see. Mr. Kool-Aid Makers. Which assistant coaches would you turn over at the end of the season? I'm not going to name names. I do have a few that I think are kind of obvious. And part of this, for the record, is not just game day stuff, development. It's recruiting. I talked about that pod on Saturday morning before the game even started between the Noles and the Tigers. You're in the position you're in at quarterback, et cetera. The 20 and 21 classes didn't get done. That's on Norvell. He hired the staff. But they still got to execute. You can get better at recruiting. It's easier to recruit at Florida State than most schools. It's not that hard. Florida State conservatively is a top 15 job in the country. And you're not a top 30 team by a lot of the metrics right now in recruiting. And I'm quite sure you're going to lose several other guys. Those are unacceptable answers. Let's see. All right. Guy Davis. I enjoy listening to Bud's game analysis. Yes, Bud Elliott does a great job with that. No question. If I have a question about Florida State, he's probably the first guy I'm going to ask. Tribal Chief. Fuller and Shannon for damn sure. Bye-bye. I wouldn't be all that surprised by that. I'll get that junk off there. Let's see here. Seminole Big Boy. Someone needs to start calling the play calling. I mean, calling out. I mean, I thought it was okay yesterday in certain spots, but like they're getting so many plays blown up. I believe Memphis had 12 tackles for loss for over 70 yards. I mean, they had 4 sacks. It's like the offensive line's a sieve. Again, both tackles were out against Memphis. That's a problem. Let's see. The one bright spot for Florida State is the kicker. 50-plus yard field goals are automatic. Yeah, Fitz is 3 for 3, right? Isn't he 3 for 3 on Is a 52, a 54, and a 59? That's ridiculous. Good for him. He's going to get paid. Ryan Fitzgerald's like legit. Only Sertan, Yak, and maybe Dugans. Everyone else can go. That is from NK. Meh. Someone also needs to take over offensive play calling. I'm not against that, but as I talked about earlier today on the show that I did, just a baseline show, Norvell has experience coaching guys that are both mobile and pocket quarterbacks. So in 2019, when he basically won the opportunity to get the Florida State job, they went 12-2 at Memphis with a pocket quarterback who had negative rushing yards on the year. So like he's done it before. It's weird to me that they're not just bad. They're so bad. Their offense is not even worth watching. It's hard to put into perspective. Oh, let's see. Here's another interesting one. Landon Oakley states, gotta love the casuals who defend DJ and act like he's not the issue. He's a major part. Here in just a minute, I'm going to read a few more comments. I'm going to do a buy or sell. Part of the buy or sell is going to be rankings and putting things together, buy or sell this position, etc. And I'm just going to do a generic rankings for the offense from quarterback to O-line. How would you rank them? I'm going to talk about, put that in your mind now. How would you rank them? I have my own list. I'll give out my answers just a little bit later. I want everybody to think about it. I certainly don't want to influence anybody, but mine might be different from some other people, and I'm going to explain mine. If you have a comment about it, fire away. More than happy to listen to you. Let's see. Blake Nagy, DJ ain't the only problem on this team. Laugh out loud. No, there's pretty much everything besides the kicking game is at least somewhat problem. By the way, shout out to the front seven for at least playing pretty good defense against the run for most of the game against Memphis. They did a pretty good job. Joshua Farmer took by far the biggest step forward. I don't know why that is, but he was much, much better against Memphis. This is funny. Seminole big boy picking one win. That's Charleston Southern, I assume. NK, I'm between 3 or 4 wins. I mean, if they got to 4, I think they'd be ahead of the curve. Think about that statement, though. Think about that. When was the last time you said it was okay for Florida State? Not that it's okay, I guess, but there was even an option. That's a better way to put it. Florida State with 3 or 4 wins. Really? You know what I mean? Like name a team that's this bad after winning even 10 games, let alone 13 the year before. I don't care if it's Florida State or otherwise. Name somebody. I cannot. I've tried, but I've just not come up with anything. This is hilarious. I don't know if this is realistic or not, but Tribal Chief Noles, Charleston Southern 21, Florida State 24. So they win by a field goal against Charleston Southern. Brother, that's pretty bad. NK, it's problems all over the field, and most importantly, with the staff that's evaluated DJ and thought he was good. I talked about that. NK is 100% right. When was the last time you felt good about Florida State as it relates to their evaluations and how things go with recruiting, and now to a certain degree the portal? Because, I mean, until this year, no doubt Florida State was the portal kings in terms of hit rate. Not only getting guys, okay, this guy contributed, blah, 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 like dudes. They just had a portal guy that transferred in, was a first-round pick. They had a guy that went early in the second round. They had another guy going middle second round. Like, they killed it. So why is it so bad now? It's crazy. This is funny too. Witted official, USF second best team in Florida. Doubt that. But still, it's interesting. It's not defending him to say he's not the only problem. It's the truth. I'm for Luke over both DJ and Brock, but this offense is horrible, and it starts up front. I think this is from Blake Nagy. I think Blake is referring to the quarterback play and comparing it with all the other positions on offense, but he thinks the O-line might be the biggest problem. And it could be. It's certainly there. I'm right there with you. I have an interesting take on that a little bit. Again, top of your head, if you just want to put it in the chat, I might read a few of them. Rank the positions on offense: quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, offensive line. So there are 5. If you're in the chat, quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, O-line, just rank them. Curious what everybody thinks. Mr. Kool-Aid Maker, at this point, I'm rooting for them to go 0-13 just to see it. The season is already gone. Oh boy, that's bad. That is bad. Let's see. Teams should be ashamed of scheduling cupcake teams during the regular season to pad their stats. Shame on Tech, Boston College, and Memphis. That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. Jimbo, there is a reason why he got the biggest buyout in college football history from A&M. He is a scumbag. He is a pretty big scumbag from what I've heard from numerous people. Midtown has a point. I'm curious about this too. Looks worse than Norvell's first year. Agree? 2020, Norvell and company, I believe they started 0-4. Was that 20 or 21? They started 0-4. I forget, but it was bad. I get the years mixed up. That 20 team is bad recruiting. You had a lot of transfers. They just didn't have much going for them. Jim Ike. Didn't one Nole player in the interview boast we can match up against anyone? 0-3. Yeah, Jim, that's probably not the best idea to say that, right? I agree. Lane Kiffin should be your first choice, but FSU is broke. That is from Armando Parra. I'm going to talk about Kiffin momentarily. I want to read a few more comments. I'm glad that Armando brought that up, but there is a lot of stuff going on. Napier may be fired before I even finish doing this podcast. So there's a lot of possibilities there. We'll see how that goes. Tribal, he left Memphis. Only them coned their hair to whoop his punk ass embarrassing. Yeah, well, that's fine. Panama Jack, does Alex Atkins help having him back on the sidelines with O-line chemistry? I would think so. But again, we don't know who's going to play. Alex Atkins, coordinator, O-line guy. You would have to think so. But both tackles are out. And there were a couple plays. Just a side note here on O-line, or on the point of it in general. A couple of plays that I randomly watched Mo at center. He got smoked. That's a 60-year senior, and he's been a really good player. I don't know if he's banged up, but he just didn't look himself. That's pretty bad. I don't understand that, because he was one of my favorite players last year because he competed so hard. Ron Lowry, 12 points against Memphis, about 5 question marks after that. Yeah, that's a problem. Let's see. Norvell is a great assistant coach, but not a leader of men. Armando Parra. I think a lot of guys kind of fit that mantra in football. I really do. I don't think that it's going to be all that different for many of the guys that are in this chat, many of the gals in this chat. Football is pretty different. You've got to have a specific ability to get people to believe in what you're doing, because football is the ultimate team sport. You have over 100 guys on your squad. And finally, it's the media and all the things on the side with the boosters. You got to get people to buy in. Not everybody can do it. And I've heard a few of the key boosters for Florida State really like Mike. That's great. But right now, I don't think his players do. There's something that's a disconnect, and I've never been able to figure it out. I'm not going to try and sit here and say I've suddenly figured that out, but we'll see. Jim Ike says, Cal 36, Florida State 10. If it's that bad, there will be boo birds and a lot of empty seats. Chad Bueller, not to be doom and gloom, but has a team ever gone undefeated followed by a winless season? I don't think that's the case. Chad, if it happens, holy moly, that would be incredible.